The year is 1983, and the video game market is falling apart. Atari is on the verge of bankruptcy, billions of dollars are disappearing, and everyone is blaming one game. This is E.T. the Extraterrestrial, and it is regarded as one of the worst video games of all time. It lost $100 million in sales, and it became the scapegoat for the video game crash of 1983. After E.T., many believed that video games would disappear into obscurity, until the Nintendo NES and a Little Red Plumber resurrected North American markets 2 years later. Was this game even that bad? The story is a little bit more complicated than you may think. Before they brought it down, Atari ruled the gaming industry. Actually, Atari created the gaming industry. After releasing Pong in 1972, it would rule the video game sphere with an iron fist for the majority of the 70s. But arcade cabinets were not enough for Atari. In 1977, they shook the whole industry by creating the first commercially successful home video game console, the Atari 2600. Despite how archaic the graphics and gameplay may look when put next to today's games, the Atari 2600 changed everything. This little machine started a revolution, and has been credited with igniting the chain reaction that led to the development of home computers, and even the invention of the iPhone. In fact, Mr. Apple himself, Steve Jobs, worked at Atari during his early career. Shortly after the launch of the 2600, competitors entered the industry with new consoles, and Atari had to develop more games to maintain its market position. The industry was starting to look like a battle zone. But Atari's strategy was simple. They would buy licenses to popular games and properties, such as Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, import them to the 2600, and watch the money roll in. This was a great system. That was until an alien hit the big screen. This is Howard Warshaw, the developer behind E.T. Warshaw was one of Atari's best developers. He made a name for himself immediately after developing his first Atari game, an adaptation of the arcade hit Star Castle with his own creative twist. This gave birth to Yar's Revenge. It was one of the first video games to have a backstory, which was later adapted into an accompanying comic book. What was supposed to be another shelf filler became a smash hit, and Yar's Revenge sold over 1 million copies. Warshaw was Atari's most respected programmer after creating only one game. Warshaw was on top of the world, and he was about to go to the moon. He was tasked with adapting Indiana Jones into a video game, which would be the first movie adaptation in video game history. Warshaw spent 10 months on the game, and when he showed it to director Steven Spielberg, he was so impressed, he said it was just like watching a movie. Yeah, Warshaw was doing great. His career seemed to be looking like a great adventure. But Steven Spielberg was making another movie that year. A movie that simultaneously became the most commercially successful movie of its time, and one that destroyed Warshaw's career. In 1983, Warshaw received a call from Atari's CEO. They had finally secured E.T.'s rights, and Spielberg specifically requested that Warshaw program the game himself. There was just one catch. With Black Friday right around the corner, he was given 5 weeks to program the entire game. If he missed the deadline, the contract would be for nothing. Without a second thought, Warshaw accepted. Despite the time crunch and God only knows how little sleep, Warshaw was able to finish the game on time. Atari made millions of cartridges, expecting high demand, but the public did not like the game. At all. In fact, thousands of cartridges were getting returned. And the rest is history. Atari was struggling financially, and without the expected cash flow from E.T., the company ultimately went bankrupt the next year. This was followed by the industry crashing, and Warshaw taking the fall. He was told, I'm sorry, that was a mean one. I'll do better. And as rumored, it was said that Atari filled 13 trucks full of game cartridges and dumped them in a hole in the New Mexico desert and covered it in concrete, never to see the light of day again. Now, let's see how bad the game actually is. Hello gamers, this is Bogey at your service. Today we'll be playing E.T. for the Atari 2600 and see what the heck is wrong with this game. The game begins with E.T. landing on Earth, and the objective is to find pieces of a phone so you can phone home. and you have to do a little bit of searching around to find all 3 pieces. There's just one problem. All phone pieces are in these holes, but each phone location is randomized for each game, and these holes are a pain in the butt.
Okay, I'm just gonna rise out of this hole, just nice and gently, just.
But if you find a question mark on the screen, then the hole with the piece will light up. Once you complete the phone, you can begin to phone home, but there is just one problem. You have to phone from a specific spot, and this is also random for each game. So you run across these screens, trying to find the one space you have to stand in order to send the signal. Okay, you send the signal, but there is just one problem. You have to go back to the main screen and find a spot where you can order the ship to land. And you're being timed. If you run out of time, you have to go back to the call center. But there is just one problem. These guys! You touch the scientist, they bring you back to the lab, and then you have to walk back. But if the FBI guy touches you, he removes a phone piece. I cannot tell you how annoying this guy is. I cannot tell you how many phone pieces I've lost to this guy. He just appears too. And if any of them appear while you were trying to send a ship down, the ship won't land. So you gotta wait. Oh, and you can only move for a restricted amount. And if you move for more than you were allowed to, you die. This game is difficult, but once you get the hang of this game and all of its goofy rules, it is actually not that bad. Yeah, it's not Legend of Zelda or anything, but it's not terrible. You just need to read the rules before diving into this game. Remember the urban legend of Atari dumping ET cartridges in the New Mexico desert? Well, the location was not known for a very long time, until the documentary crew of Atari Game Over went looking in 2014. Using photos that were rumored to show the dump, they were able to pinpoint its exact location. However, unlike the urban legend, only 10% of the buried games found were ET cartridges. Most of the games were actually from some of Atari's most successful and acclaimed titles. It turns out that the dump was not a dramatic way to remove ET from Atari's existence, but rather an attempt by a nearly bankrupt company to dispose of inventory that was unable to sell. Despite the criticism against Warshaw, he was an excellent video game designer. A lot of colleagues even stated that ET greatly exceeded the quality of some of Atari's other games. It was just a mediocre product given too much of the spotlight. Also, if Warshaw was given the same amount of time he was given to make Indiana Jones, E.T. would have definitely have turned out to be a classic. And to say that E.T. was responsible for Atari's bankruptcy and the industry's collapse might be partially true, but other factors, such as overcompetition, the death of the arcade due to the rise of home consoles, and overproduction, would have caused a crisis, with or without E.T. It was corporate greed that did an Atari, not a single video game. I admit that E.T. may not have been incredible, but it does not deserve to be called the worst video game of all time. However, E.T. will continue to hold its place in history, for better or for worse. Personally, I would say that the worst video game is League of Legends. Whoa, are those asteroids? Oh, that's E.T.'s ride. Wait guys, E.T. is gonna say something. Subscribe. E.T. phone home, E.T. phone home. Bogaland, Bogaland, Bogaland. Oh, a Bogaland, the Bogaland. Bogaland.